Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today I'm going to be doing a deck analysis of a bit of a wacky deck. It's going to be Machamp. Now Machamp has recently seen some success in the UK. It was piloted by Tom Hall all the way to the finals of Sutton Coldfield City Championships, which he then won with this guy, beating Adam Hawkins in the final, I believe, who was playing Yveltal. So first of all, congratulations to Tom, he did really well on the day. And as you can see, the deck can really stand up to some of the most popular decks around at the moment. Me and Joe did both go to that event, and there were a lot of Yveltal. I would say probably at least a third of the field was Yveltal, and there was not much showing of many of the top three decks, i.e. Donphan and Virgin. I only saw, I think, 2 Virgin and 1 Donphan. So there was a lot of Yveltal for this guy to deal with, but he managed to play the field really well and take the tournament, which is insane. The deck focuses around this Fighting Fury ability, which does 20 more damage to each of your opponent's active Pokemon for each Machamp you have in play. It doesn't say that on the card, but because it's an ability like this, it's stackable, meaning that for every Machamp you have in play, you're doing an extra 20 damage, which is insane. With things like Strong Energy and Muscle Band and Fighting Stadium and the low energy, high damage output a lot of these fighting cards have, you can really rack up some damage with the attacks in this deck. You can be taking knockouts with absolutely anything. There's nothing that you can't use to do damage. It's really good. But like I said, there's not much else to say about the deck. Just another congratulations to Tom Hall. I haven't got his exact list here, but I've got something that's based on what I saw while he was playing it, and Joe actually played him, so it's based on what we both have seen in the deck, what I saw, just sort of looking over at some games and what Joe saw when playing against him. So I think we've got a pretty accurate list, perhaps not card for card, but it should be relatively accurate. To start with, we've got 4 Machamp. This is just important because you want to be getting into these guys as quickly as possible. You want to be getting these sort of turn 1 just so you can get Machamps as quick as possible as well. 70 HP is nice. The 2 retreat isn't as nice, but even an attack like Knuckle Punch, which is just 1 energy for 10, can really rack up the damage if you've got Muscle Bands and Fighting Stadiums and Strong Energies and Machamps. It can 2-shot EXs really easily. So there's no reason not to run 4 in here. Just makes starting with it not as painful because you don't mind losing one. It means prizing one isn't as bad, but there's nothing much more to say about that. Second card is 2 Machoke. Now, because Seismitoad is so big at the moment, it really reduces the effectiveness of Rare Candy, and we're actually only running 3 Rare Candy in here. So 2 Machoke means that if you're playing against Seismitoad, you can still get more than 1 Machamp out, because you can Karina for these guys to just build them up, because you're not locked out of Karinas. Beatdown is an okay attack. Obviously it's really good with all of the toys and the Fighting Fury ability, but that's not what you're using this guy. You're using this guy to be able to get into the Machamps as quickly as possible. There's some cool combos you can do with this guy and Karina and things like that. But again, we're mainly running 2 just for the Seismitoad matchup, just so you still have the outs to be able to get more than 1 Machamp out in one game. And then maxed out Machamp, just because this Fighting Fury ability is so strong. It was actually the pre-release promo, so they're not really that hard to get. They are holos, but they're not that hard to get because they were pre-release promos as well. So yeah, 150 damage is awkward. It's still got 2 retreat, so that for a big non-EX, that's not too bad. The attack Machamp Crush is really interesting. For 3 fighting, you do 80 damage, which can quite easily knock something out with things like Strong Energy and Muscle Band and Fighting Stadium and this Fighting Fury ability. It can quite easily knock things out. But the text on it is really interesting. During your opponent's next turn, any damage done to attacks by the defending Pokemon is reduced by 40 before applying weakness and resistance. This means that one of the threats that could most people would think could deal with Machamp is Mewtwo, because of the 3 energy cost that Machamp requires. But because it's before applying weakness and resistance, Mewtwo requires 3 energy on it as well, which isn't that hard, but it's not as easy as just attaching a DCE and throwing a Mewtwo up there. It's still relatively difficult, and like I say, a lot more difficult than getting 2 energy on it. And it just makes numbers a little bit more awkward for your opponent. Especially, it means Seismitoad isn't doing anything without a Muscle Band, which is really nice because you can just sit and take damage, take the Trainer Lock, because once you've got one Machamp out, it's not too hard to be able to knock out a Seismitoad. You can quite easily 2-shot them if you can't play your tools, and then 1-shot them if you've got your tools down before they've started to Quaking Punch you. So that's really nice. But yeah, the text on that is a little bit crazy, but it's really useful against the Mewtwo matchup. The next card is 2 Hawlucha. This guy is just so good at the moment. The Hawlucha, for 1 energy, does 62 EXs, but that's increased even more so by Fighting Fury and Strong Energy and Muscle Band and Fighting Stadium. Flying Press can do so much damage just for 1 energy. You're only giving up 1 prize if you lose it. It's also got resistance to fighting, which is so good, especially against decks like Domfan and things like that. It means they have to really commit some energy to their Domfans to be able to one-shot a Hawlucha. They need to have at least, I'm pretty sure it's 3 strong energy on them, or 2 strong energy and a Muscle Band, which it isn't all that easy to get to, and then sometimes players might not be willing to put the 2 energy on, so it's really nice. And the other thing is the free retreat is so useful for things like escape rope, which is seeing a lot of play at the moment. We're also playing escape rope in here, so you can quite easily escape rope into an opponent's Pokemon and just switch into your Hawlucha to switch out again. It really warrants a good sort of reason to put 2 of in the deck, and obviously it's really good for trading against EXs, so it's definitely worth, I think, 2 slots in the deck. The third attacker really is the Lucario. The attacks on this guy are just insane, especially with the Fighting Fury ability. Missile Jab isn't affected by resistance, meaning that you can hit through Yveltal's resistance, hit through Hawlucha's resistance, hit through anything like that, and that's just for 1 energy. And that can still rack up really big damage with Machamp and Strong Energy and things like that. Corkscrew Smash is 2 for 60 and helps draw through your deck if you manage to lower your hand to less than 6 cards. That's where you can start to get into 1-hit knockout range. It's still quite difficult, but you can start to get into 1-hit knockout range. Somersault Kick, you can easily get into 1-hit knockout range with just a if you've got the Fighting Stadium in play, you just need a Muscle Band and 1 strong, and then a Machamp on the bench, and you're doing 180 just for 3 energy, and then there's no drawbacks. So Lucario is so strong at the moment. We've got 1 Landorus EX. The sniping is really nice. If anything takes a big hit to start with, and then your opponent switches out, you can snipe them on the bench and get those 2 prizes, or 1 prize, or whatever, later on in the game, meaning that they can't really hide. There's not enough reason to put 2 in here, I don't feel, because I think it then becomes too clunky, and it then becomes more of a Landorus deck than a Machamp deck, considering you'll then be attacking with Landorus more than you'll be attacking with Machamp. But I feel the one Landorus, is definitely worth it, just for this Hammerhead attack. Land's Judgment you can use, especially as we are also running a baby Landorus, but if you want to be attaching 3 energy to something, it's probably going to be Machamp rather than the Landorus, as it only gives up 1 prize and reduces damage as well. But that's why we've got the Landorus in here. And finally, 1 baby Landorus, just for this shout of power, attaching a basic energy from the discard to 1 benched Pokemon. For 1 energy, it can do some big damage. It can 2 to 3 shot EXs, no problem. And helps power up your Machamps with this shout of power attack. obviously because the deck, well, fighting itself doesn't really have much acceleration, bar this guy, it's definitely worth it. And it means that you can power up Machamps a lot quicker than you'd be able to if you were just manually attaching to them. So that's the Pokemon line. All relatively simple once you've got over the fact that you're playing Machamp overall. Next is 4 Sycamore, pretty much because this is just standard in every deck at the moment. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards. You can quite easily run down your hand in this, not a problem. So 4 Sycamore definitely. And I don't know that there's a deck out there at the moment that you wouldn't play 4 Sycamore in. 4 Karina, just because this guy, well, this card, definitely not a guy, combos so well with Rare Candy Machamp, with Rare Candy Machoke. You can, if you've got the Machamp in hand, you can search for a Rare Candy to evolve that Machoke, that Machop into a Machamp, and then look for a Machoke as well to evolve another one for the next turn. You can just search for a Rare Candy Machoke if you can get one turn 2. It's just so powerful. It also searches out every single Pokemon in the deck because they're all fighting. So it searches out every Pokemon in the deck. Becomes a little bit more dead against Seismitoad as it only searches for items, whereas Skylar searches for everything. But definitely worth it. Karina is much better than Skylar in the deck, just for this searching for the Pokemon ability as well. And yeah, you can get some really nice combos with this guy. This card. Still said guy. Get some really nice combos. Get Machamps out of nowhere. It's really nice, and you can never really have a bad hand with a Karina because you can always search for something that can improve your hand significantly. We've then got 3N. I was debating putting 4 in here, but to be perfectly honest, I feel like with a lot of fighting decks, you're going to be taking prizes early. Less so with this one because you have to set up your Machamps, but you're still taking prizes relatively early, and therefore I don't feel 4 is really the best play. You definitely need 3 because they're the only other draw support in the deck, bar 1 bike. So you definitely need 3. I would never go less than 3 in this deck, but I don't think I'd go up to 4 either, just because of how quickly you can take prizes if you play it like a more standard fighting deck. Finally, we've got 2 Lysander. This is pretty much just for the Donphan matchup, just to be able to grab Donphans that hit and switch, though it's really useful for anything that likes to hit and then run away, or that your opponent throws up just to take a big brunt of the damage. You can just capture them, well, Lysander them back up and take them out for 2 prizes out of nowhere. We've then got 3 Rare Candy. This is pretty simple, just to be able to get turn 2 Machamps so easily. I wouldn't put 4 in here, obviously, because Seismitoad is relatively big. Against Seismitoad, it can often be a really dead card if they get the turn 2 Quaking Punch. But that's why we run the 2 Machoke, just to be able to still get more than 1 Machamp out under Seismitoad lock. And it's just such a powerful card when you consider it. It's unfortunate that Seismitoad is so big at the moment, but it's still worth 3, definitely. Next is 3 Muscle Band. I don't want to put 4 in here just because you're doing so much output with Machamp's ability as well. It's like a Muscle Band for everything, so I don't feel 4 is needed. I could see people putting 4 in here, but I don't feel 4 is needed, and I'd rather put, like, I've got a bike in here that I took out the Muscle Band for, just to up consistency a little bit and have an extra draw card. I don't think you need the 4th Muscle Band, but it's just an extra 20 damage, which is really nice. The second tool we play is actually 2 Focus Sash. Now, I know Tom said on the day he didn't feel it did amazing, but I can definitely warrant at least 1 space in the deck for Focus Sash, and in my case 2. Simply because it means you're not, if you've got one attached to a matchup, and they can't actually take a prize on a matchup turn 1 if you can get the Focus Sash onto them, which is really nice. It means you're going to be keeping at least 1 matchup around turn 1 if you manage to get one of these guys, one of these Focus Sashes on it. And it just means that even when matchups hitting for really big damage, you sometimes struggle to one-shot it, especially if it's got Focus Sash and you don't run lasers. The only thing that gets around this, like I say, is lasers, but lasers aren't seeing a lot of play at the moment. They're seeing some play, but not amazing amounts. So that's why we've got the 2 Focus Sash in here. Next is 2 Ultra Ball. I've only got 2 in here simply because Karina searches out everything in the deck. I know a lot of people that play sort of fighting with Garbodor or any other attackers, they perhaps run a 3rd Ultra Ball, but considering Karina searches out everything in the deck, I don't really feel a 3rd Ultra Ball is warranted, definitely not a 4th, so that's why I've only got 2 in here. Plus you don't like discarding too much in the deck because you don't have energy acceleration. With the Landorus you don't mind discarding 1 or 2 energy, but your Landorus probably isn't going to be lasting more than 2 turns of attacks, so you don't want to be discarding loads of it just to get it all back because it's not as quick as things like Mega Manetric or anything like that, because it's only got 120 HP and only gets 1 energy at a time, so you don't want to be discarding everything at once. 2 VS Seeker means that you can really flip the game on Donphan. It means the 2 Lysander and the 2 Escape Rope as well as 2 VS Seeker means that their Donphans are never safe. You've always got an out to, well not always, but you've got a lot more outs to catching up their Donphans and taking them out, and it just means you can throw away sort of supporters early to be able to VS Seeker them back later on and use them again. And it just means you, again, it's another card the way you have like a 5th Karina or a 5th Sycamore, excuse me, or a 4th N. So it's just really useful. A lot of people are playing them sort of as 2 obs in the deck at the moment. 2 Fighting Stadium is useful. Again, I wouldn't go above 2 because of how sort of Fighting Fury is a muscle band for everything. You don't need more than 2. Plus it only works against the X's. But the extra 20 damage can really change the board. It means that it cancels out Yveltal's resistance. It's really useful against any EXs really. It makes taking 1 shots on EXs a lot easier as well with some of your attackers. So that's why I've got 2 in there. 2 Escape Rope is incredibly useful just for, again, getting up Donphans. But also if you start with, say, the Landorus and you don't want to attach to it, getting out of there is really useful. There's no Floatstone in the deck, so this and a Switch are only outs to getting out of the active position. But I definitely would play 2 Escape Rope and 1 Switch over 2 Switch and 1 Escape Rope, just for that sort of pseudo catcher effect with the Horluchas. And as I said there, 1 Switch just to, if you want to attack what your opponent's got active, but you do need to get out of the active position, you've still got a way to do so. But not much else to say about the card. A Professor's Letter, just to be able to get that first turn attachment, mainly, and get 2 cards that can be Ultra Ball fodder for Shout of Power to get back in the same turn. You really don't want to miss an energy attachment with this deck, especially if you can't get into that Shout of Power Landorus, because Machamp's attack is 3 energy and it's all fighting energy, so it's really important to hit every turn of energy, especially if you can't get into that Shout of Power Landorus. Not much else to say about Professor's Letter, but it's incredibly useful just for being able to grab the 2 energy you need and then fodder them if you want to, or anything like that. 1 Bike, as I mentioned earlier, which I took out for the Muscle Band. Works really well with Karina, to be honest. If you can lower your hand down really quickly and then you can Karina for a Pokemon that you can bench and a Bike, you can get sometimes up to 4 cards with this guy. And it means that there's more than one. We don't have much outs, well, many outs to search or draw more cards. There's no Colruy's in the deck or anything like that, so it's just another out to drawing. Obviously it doesn't work in Trainer Lock, which is not nice, but it's just 1 extra draw card, sort of a pseudo supporter, and if timed well, if played well, can get 4 new cards, which is really nice. Finally, the ace spec of the deck is Scramble Switch, which is so important in the deck. What Machamp will aim to do is build up, sort of take 2 prizes early on, whilst building up a Machamp on the bench, and then take 2 prizes with that Machamp, probably take a hit, take a hit with the Machamp, take 2 prizes with the Machamp, and then you'll take another hit. You'll take your first hit ideally, meaning that you'll die next turn, so you can scramble switch into the other Machamp, and then Machamp Crush with that Machamp, meaning that they need to hit 190 to knock you out. Obviously, you can do the same just getting a Machamp up. If you say have like perhaps like a Lucario just at corkscrew smashing to take 2 prizes earlier on, you can then scramble switch into the Machamp and then Machamp Crush for 2 prizes, perhaps on an EX, because it's quite easy to build up the damage to one shot with Machamp. You can scramble switch into it, and because Machamp has 150 HP and reduces by 40, they need to be hitting 190. Unless you're, and then with an attacker, because otherwise you're then going to be taking another 2 prizes. So it's such a useful card. The deck really focuses around taking 4 prizes in 2 turns to sweep up, sort of taking 2 prizes early and then taking 4 prizes later on in 2 turns, with the use of Scramble Switch to get attackers out of get a Machamp out of nowhere and force your opponent to do 190 damage to knock you out, which is really, really good. So that's why I've gone for Scramble Switch. And then finally the energy count: 7 normal fighting energy and 4 strong energy, just to increase damage output even further. No reason not to play strong energy at the moment. Nothing in the deck requires double colourless, so unlike Donphan, you don't need the double colourless, which means you can quite easily max out the strong energy, and which increases the damage even further. Which means that things like you've then got strong energy, a fighting stadium, oh they're falling down, muscle band, and Machamps, all increasing damage by 20 for each of these. So sort of even that Machop's attack, that's 10 base damage, 20 with the strong energy, 20 more to EXs, 20 extra with the muscle band, and 20 for each Machamp. So just with one Machamp on the bench, you're going to be doing 90 damage to an EX for 1 energy on a 1 prize attacker that you can get out and set up in 1 turn. It's just so crazy. The deck's output is incredible, which is, I guess, why it did so well at Sutton Coldfield City Championships on the 3rd of January. But yeah, not much else to say about the deck. That's what the deck focuses around, really: the Fighting Fury ability, and then doing even more damage, taking 2 prizes turn after turn to be able to knock out whatever your opponent sends up and force them to do huge amounts of damage just to take out a Machamp, which is not nice for your opponent at all. But yeah, not much else to say about the deck, so I'm going to end the video off here. Thank you for watching very much, and stick around. We've got a couple more deck analyses to go through, based on some things we saw at Sutton Coldfield City Championships and some hype that some decks have been getting, and then we officially start Primal Clash research and testing and things like that. So make sure you stay tuned for all of the sort of most up-to-date Primal Clash deck videos, hopefully. Me and Joe have both started to make and test Primal Clash, just so we've got content for you guys. The day Primal Clash comes out, we can start playing, making decks, showing you decks, giving deck analyses, giving sort of playtesting matches, everything like that. But bar that, there's not much more. There's only a month until Primal Clash comes out, so it's on the horizon. It's coming up, and I'm really excited to start getting into some new cards and some new concepts. But yeah, bar that, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to stick around, and I've been Jack from Omnipoke, channel that brings you everything Pokemon. See you later.